Ever dreamed of living in Japan? Between sushi, ramen, and yes, even the world of Japan is an exciting place. But there's a huge twist. Japan has many dumb rules that might make you scratch your head. So today, let's talk about things in Japan that even Japanese hate. Chances are you probably know how complex the garbage system in Japan is. But it's way worse than you expect. For example, I'm a Japanese and I don't even know how the garbage system works here. What makes throwing garbage away hard in Japan is the number of categories that exist. There's the burnable, non-burnable, recyclable, food waste, oversized, and so many more. Also, pickup days for each garbage is different, and if you miss that day, you have to wait for another whole week. Each city in each prefecture has its own rule for throwing away garbages. So if you move to a new city, you have to learn a whole new system. I'm Japanese and I don't fully understand the system, so good luck to all you foreigners. For all the anime and fans that love school uniforms, bad news, because school uniforms are overrated. School uniforms probably look cool from the outside, but from a Japanese perspective, there are no benefits to having school uniforms. Let me tell you why. 1. Uncomfortable. School uniforms are not comfortable. You have to wear a tight tie, you have to wear a special shoes, and it's super hot. 2. Wearing it every day. Uniforms might be cool for a week, but wearing it every day gets super annoying. 3. Teachers getting mad. If you don't wear your school uniform properly, teachers get mad at you, and you don't want that. So honestly, there aren't many benefits to having a school uniform, other than that you don't have to worry about fashion sense. In the US, people rent houses and cars, but in Japan, you can rent girlfriends, family members, and even wedding guests. You can also hire professional cuddlers and even professional apologizers. And I heard that these renting companies make a lot of money, so there's a very high demand for renting girlfriends in Japan. This culture of renting girlfriends is one of the reasons why Japan's fertility rate is declining. People are just not getting to real relationships. If you want to go on a date, you can just rent a girlfriend, rather than asking somebody out. They'll never reject you as long as you're paying money. Karoshi was a term invented in Japan which means death caused by overwork. Now you might be thinking, what? People die from overworking in Japan? Yes, a lot of people die from working too much. That's how crazy the work culture in Japan is. People that die from overwork are often part of companies called raku-kigyo, which is a term used for companies that make you work long hours. They accomplish this by pressuring their employees and creating a very toxic work culture. Now you might be thinking, why don't people just avoid these companies then? It sounds easy, but it's actually pretty difficult because the list of all raku-kigyos doesn't exist, and these companies often present themselves as good companies in interviews and career fairs. I found a great video by CBS that explains the work culture in Japan, so let's take a look.
Years after losing his son, Itsuo Sekigawa is still in shock, grief-stricken and angry. Straight out of college in 2009, his son Satoshi proudly joined a prestigious manufacturer, but within a year, he was dead. Investigators said the stress of working extreme hours drove him to take his own life. The young engineer fell victim to the Japanese phenomenon of karoshi, or death from overwork. An early day for him was going home at 9 p.m., his father says. If work wasn't finished, he'd stay until midnight.
The reality is that in Japan, workers are working ridiculous hours. I think that's hard to deny.
American labor activist Louis Carlett says such sacrifice is seen as a virtue here.
There's a strong cultural norm that you have to devote everything to the company, and you're a corporate warrior, and I think that's what really pushes people over the edge.
So if you're going to work in Japan, I recommend working at a foreign company that has a headquarters in Japan. These companies tend to have a better work-life balance and higher pay. Avoid Japanese companies at all costs. Love it or hate it, is one of the most well-known cultures in Japan. I mean, when I was in the United States, the most asked question was, are your parents samurais? And, do you watch? So everybody knows about. What people don't know is that is actually full of problems. First, sexualization of minors. A lot of videos contain high school girls in school uniforms and just minors in general. In America, you're not allowed to sexualize minors, but in hentai, this happens very frequently. Second, some people that watch anime or fall in love with the fictional characters so much that they find it hard to love real people. For example, there was a guy that married an anime character in Japan very recently in 2023. I found an interview of him, so let's take a look.
あら、ちょっとびっくり。
はい。はい。はい、うちの妻です。
妻。
はい。
はい。妻と言いますと。
はい。うちの初音ミクですね。2018年にミクさんと結婚式を挙げました。
その結婚というのは、
はい、
心の中でとかそういうことですか。
あ、いや、ちゃんと会場を借りて結婚式を挙げましたよ。はい。
お邪魔します。
ご新郎ご新婦ご入場です。
お互いを尊敬し、永遠に愛することを誓います。平成30年11月4日、夫、近藤明彦。
ウェディングキスをどうぞ。
Unfortunately, many things in Japan are not foreigner friendly yet. And here are a few examples. Housing. It is very hard to get housing in Japan as a foreigner. Many house owners refuse to rent out houses to non-Japanese people. Restaurants. A lot of Japanese restaurants still do not have English menus, or the clerk does not speak English. Police. You are more likely to get stopped by the police if you are a foreigner living in Japan.
Yeah, okay, me and 3 Japanese friends, we got a little drunk. We were pretty drunk, izakaya, nomikai, whatever they call that stuff. And so it's midnight, we're in front of the konbini, or 11:30, waiting for the last train, and we're drunk off our asses. We are, and we're being loud in front of the konbini. And I had one of them, Suntory 9%, whatever that is. The stuff will get you drunk and badly hungover. And we're raising hell, me and these 3 Japanese friends I just met, and the police roll up on us. Urusai, urusai. I guess that means shut up. I get it. I'm sorry, it's Japan. Gomenasai. And then with the 4 of us, they look at me and they said, let's see your gaijin card, your ID card, or gabgengagen. They got a name for it. And I'm like, what? You're asking me for an ID card and not them? I got so offended. I refused to show him my passport. I refused. I'm like, and I said, doshite shiteru watashi nihonjin janai, which is kind of like, how do you know I'm not Japanese? I was so offended that I refused to show him my passport. And one of my Japanese friends started saying racial discrimination and a bunch of other stuff. I understood that. Anyways, I refused. And then they called more police officers, and I was not going to be the victim of that sort of racial harassment.
Don't get me wrong. Most people would be polite and kind towards you, but there are just certain things that are not foreigner friendly yet. If you have a tattoo, it'll be hard to navigate Japan. Although views towards tattoos are changing, there are still many people in Japan that view tattoos in a negative way, especially the older generation. If you have a tattoo that is visible, you won't be able to go to most hot springs, you won't be able to work most jobs, and people will stare at you in the streets. Having a visible tattoo in Japan will make your life so much harder. So if you're planning to come to Japan, I recommend not getting a tattoo. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you subscribe because I'll be posting a video every week.